Good evening, everyone. This is the October 7th meeting of the East Long Meadow Community Preservation Committee. I'm Jonathan Torshire, representing the planning board. I'll have everyone around the table, committee members, introduce themselves.
I'm Lynn Booth. I'm from the Housing Authority.
I'm Tony Zanticini, member at large.
Bob Dobick, at large.
Still Bear, representing DPW.
And Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Stoughton, representing the Conservation Commission.
Okay. So on our first item, we have the June 24th, 2021 meeting minutes. I know some of you are new this evening, but I know a few of us attended that June 24th, 2021 meeting. I think everyone had a chance to look at the meeting minutes. Does anybody have anything they want to add to the meeting? Good evening.
Hello, folks.
We're going over the June 24th, 2021 meeting minutes. Are there any revisions, additions? Do I hear a motion to accept the meeting minutes? Preferably from over there.
I'll make a motion.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to the next item. So just a couple updates on the previous projects. We've had obviously a number of projects that we've worked on in the last couple of months. The pickleball nets were not only approved at the town council level, they have been distributed and given out. So now the tennis association will be using those. The Norcross House, the porch project was reimbursed in full. The carriage house, that was also completed and reimbursed. One thing that we might want to consider in this project that I had a chance to speak to the town accountant on, the project was about $1,300 short. So I don't know if that would be something the committee would be interested in kind of funding that gap. The price of the project went up in the few months from when it was originally estimated at to when it was actually built or completed. So they were about $1,300 short. So I don't know if how the committee feels about that. For those that are new, at our I believe our February meeting, we approved two different projects for the Norcross House. The Norcross House is on Maple Street. It is a historical home in this community. We helped with repairs to restore the porch at the Norcross House, and then some work that was done on the carriage house, the carriage door, and some of the restoring the paint back to what it was previously. So I don't know what the committee's pleasure would be. The applicant is not here this evening, but this does not need a new application. This is just sort of an addition to that.
Do you remember what we approved the project for? Sometimes we put a cap on it, like not to exceed or something.
Yeah, it was we approved for that exact figure. So this would just have to be like a standalone addition to it. Okay. And obviously it's not a new application. This is sort of like an amendment. We don't have to do this, but this was something I wanted to bring up to the committee's attention. It's a fairly small amount of money compared to the rest of the project.
Maybe they can submit the bill or what it was for the $1,300.
Yeah, I can have them maybe write up like a formal letter of kind of explaining the situation, but sort of having it official. How would everybody feel about that?
That would be acceptable. And we all know that things seem to be going up, during this period of time in our history. So that doesn't seem like a figure that's crazy,
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
I think that's a reasonable amount, based on what's going on today.
So I will let them know about that then, and then they can kind of submit that. It doesn't, considering it's already a project that's been previously approved, it can kind of be submitted at any time because it's sort of an amendment to an original
Sure,
project.
makes sense.
So let me see, moving on, the high school project, so the high school track resurfacing project, this is perhaps the largest project that we've approved in the last couple of years because of the sort of the conditions, the outside conditions this summer. Was an exceptionally rainy year. They will not be able to work on the track project until next year. So the money has been taken out of the recreation and open space account. It has been allocated or basically set aside for when that project is completed. I believe there's also a contract that is in place, but I have not seen a contract yet.
Why has money been taken out of the funds, out of the Preservation Commission fund account?
That is a question I'm still looking to answer.
And who authorized it?
That is a
And
question.
where is the money sitting right now?
These are all questions that I'm still looking to answer.
Those are the answers I want,
Yeah, those are the exact answers that I want as well.
because we have internal controls of who signs and who doesn't sign after it's been approved. Once money is put in here, it should stay in these accounts. It's coming out of our tax revenues. So it should not be into any other funds within the town.
Yeah, that's sort of just a concern that I had. Every other basically cost that I basically signed off on everything else. So all the projects that I've listed before, we had an administrative assistant. Unfortunately, Allison, she resigned. I believe she got a new job or something like that. Those were all can be tied back to original votes. We approved that administrative assistant a number of months ago. We approved all these projects for those specific prices for those reasons. Sometimes projects go over budget, and then sometimes projects you save money. I have not been privy to any of those other things related to high school projects. So I wanted to update the entire committee on that and know that I'm still looking into those answers. I just haven't unfortunately gotten those answers. But everything is supposed to be either signed off by myself or somebody else within the committee that's been sworn in that represents the committee. Could be, if I'm not here, it could be the vice chairman. It could be, we have the treasurer, so it could be any type of officer.
So you sent us these fund balances that you received. I would like you to ask the finance accountant to give us a copy of the balance sheet to each one of these funds.
I have I have a copy, like a paper copy that I can kind of pass around to everybody, but
I'd rather see a balance sheet rather than give me the fund balance.
the different transactions.
No, it tells me what's in that fund, whether it's cash or a liability set up or what the fund balance is. So I want the complete statement of a balance sheet, not just a fund balance.
Okay.
I thought we had those.
Yeah, I gave everybody basically the top line numbers, but I don't have those specific.
Yeah, I'd rather see balance sheets of each fund rather than just a fund balance.
Okay.
I'll make. I guess some-
You passed those up, didn't you? Wasn't it broken down?
The balance sheet,
Yeah.
yes, I have I think I've given everybody, or everybody has access to the
Yes.
balance sheets. Also, there's a debt schedule for the 2 bonds standing.
Yeah.
So
that-
I haven't seen a balance sheet. I see your debt payment
the debt
schedule,
schedule.
and I just seen the fund balances, for each fund. But it doesn't tell me what liabilities or cash is in each fund, other than a fund balance.
Oh, so what we, if there's outstanding.
Right.
If
There's outstanding bills to be paid out, or how much cash are in each one of these funds.
I see, yeah, usually how it works is, a lot of these projects get paid out like one and done, unless they're a bond. But that's something, after, we kind of discuss, I want, my hope is to kind of implement some type of master plan, get through some of these applications, and sort of a long-term vision that or long-term kind of plan that I had was we have about 24 projects that this committee has approved since its inception. So some of those may not have been paid out in full. Some of those, there might be money existing somewhere that might really be ours that was just unspent. So that's sort of a long-term thing that I want to try to get, hopefully with, cooperation from the town officials that would be in charge of those things. So, okay. Moving, so I believe, does anybody have any questions regarding the balance sheets? Any more questions or the projects that I sort of brought up? Okay, seeing none.
You don't know one of those packets, do you?
I do. Well, actually, yes.
Hey, Tom,
Hey, what's up, Phil? How you doing?
good.
I don't have a copy, unfortunately, of the agenda on here, but
Sorry, I thought it was Zoom only.
I do have the applications that we'll be discussing this evening. I have the balance sheets.
Perfect.
And then the minutes from June 24th. I don't have them, unfortunately.
Seems like you're doing all right with that one.
So, okay, the master plan, I think everyone had the opportunity. I think I gave either a digital copy, some people have gotten a paper copy of it. I want to first thank the town manager, Mary McNally, and Debbie House. They were pretty helpful in helping me craft this master plan. This is also kind of been a help by the Community Preservation Coalition that we work with. They offer us technical assistance, so they kind of help me edit this master plan out. This is basically the kind of final draft or rough draft, whatever you want to say, that we're going to start using, basically so that any new CPC member, so we have a few in the audience, or a few here this evening, will be able to kind of read this document and understand what exactly CPC is about, what the procedure is, what's going on in regards to everything about it. So the history of the CPEA legislation, the steps that an applicant would need to take, the history of the project that we've approved in the past, and also the amount of surcharge and state aid that we've got. If you look within this master plan over the last 5 or 6 years, we've steadily increased both the amount we've received in state trust fund, the matching rate, and the surcharge. There's a 1% surcharge in the community off of everybody's property bills, and that goes towards this fund, which dices it up between 3 different subject areas, as well as a larger undesignated pot, and then for some administrative expenses as needed. So looking at the, if you look at the table of contents, it shows how the funds can be used. It talks about open space and rec, community housing, historic resources, and then different guidelines for submission. So some of the things that I'm hoping to kind of adopt or change, making sure that all applicants give us at least a electronic or a paper copy. For some people, it's easier. Ideally, maybe both, just so that both people have them. Adding to the steps, we're going to start handing out award letters when we have these applications awarded, just so that we can go back to a specific date and time, and whether if the applicant knows exactly when we get it awarded, so that there isn't this long period of time for them needing to receive their money. And in that award letter, they basically have all the information they need to contact who they need from town hall to receive those funds, to make sure it's fully implemented, and then making sure in that award letter that they contact us and make sure that they tell us when was the project done, is the project complete, did the project go over in price, did you save money. So that's going to be a requirement with new projects going forward. Basically, this codifies all the things we've probably been doing over the years at the CPC level here in East Long Meadow, but just has it in a document. And then this document, each year could be updated. If there's something that we didn't like in it, we can go back next year, we can take it out. If we need to add something, there can be something in there, shows what the kind of the role of the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, the different committees that need to be represented on the CPC. So it just has all those things within this document. So I wanted to take the opportunity to get the opinion of the committee on this.
Well, I think it's important to have that documentation of a master plan, but at the same time, having a folder on every project with a checklist of everything you just said. And as things are completed and reviewed, you check off in the folder of that project. And that way, when it's complete, somebody, as yourself as a chairman, should sign off that the job is done. All these things have been accounted for, receipts, payouts, dates, documentation that's needed that come in during the project. It should be in that one folder and stored somewhere in wherever the CPC office is or somewhere in the town hall. But probably some type of checklist should be made up and with all that information. An appropriate sign off by whoever we designate.
Yeah, because we also have obligations from the state. We have to, once we approve the funds, we have to kind of tell the state what happened to them. Was the project completed? Was the project canceled? Because it could be, the money could be withdrawn or not used for that purpose. We basically claw back the money. So we have obligations at the state level. So this, I like the kind of the comparison of like a checklist. This really is kind of like a checklist. And it also is a checklist in the sense that it lays out the things we want to look for in an application. So how many people does it serve? Making sure that it's, something, when it's recreation, it has to be, pretty much generally something outside. We can't fund buildings. We can fund restrooms, but so there's a lot of that different stuff. There's a flow chart in there as well that kind of shows what you can preserve, what you can build upon, all that different type of stuff. So. With that, would we like to act on this plan this evening or look it over some more and maybe kind of finalize it and vote on it the next evening or the next meeting?
Yeah, I personally would like more time. You sent out that plan, but I didn't really get into it as much as I would like to. So I'd like just from my opinion, another to the next meeting.
Okay. So, and
Being brand new, I'm trying to.
Yeah, so I'll have, so everyone has it, everyone's received it.
Yep.
Excellent. So we can return to that next meeting. And if there are any questions, additions, revisions, please offer them up. If there's any grammatical mistakes we've made or anything of that nature, please let me know. So, okay. So moving on to some more old business, the Park Phase 2 application. I think everyone should have received a copy of that. This has been an application that was originally submitted April 1st. This is part of the Park Phase 1 application that we originally approved back in October of 2020. This project has been implemented in full. If you haven't been to the park yet to look at it, I believe the applicant Bill is coming on Zoom right now. This has been a project that has worked quite well and has been really helpful, I think, to the dog walkers, the dogs at the park. So people aren't there's a path to kind of walk on and it's kind of up to safety. So the other application, as we had, I think, discussed back in April, we wanted to wait until the master plan was approved and implemented. That has now taken place. So I wanted to see if there was any appetite to act perhaps on the application this evening, just to make a decision upon it. I know we have some new members here, but this will be an addition to the walkway at Heritage Park within that dog park that's there. This will be for, I believe, $7,500. The first one was $4,600. I believe this will be for $7,600. Is there any,
I have an opinion on that. I've been down there a few times and I don't believe in my eyes what I've witnessed that they've been the stewards that they led us to believe. And I don't know what the usage is of it, but when you're, going through Heritage Park and there's feces, you make a mental leap and you have a dog park there. So I don't know. I don't think, in my opinion, they haven't been the best stewards they can be. Not in favor.
okay. Does anybody have any other, had the opportunity to go down to Heritage Park or kind of know the area at all, or have any other takes on the application? Bill, is there anything you would like to say? I know you're the representing the applicant this evening.
He's muted, John. Johnny's muted,
Okay.
but you can ask him, he can hear you.
Bill, are you able to hear us?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about, the comments that were just made, what that was all about, but, as you've pointed out, we've completed phase 1 of our walkway, and it's received very good reception on the use of it. And we also have a reputation for having one of the cleanest dog parks around. So I don't know about the rest of Heritage Park, but the dog park itself is pretty well maintained. And we have monitors there every day, usually twice a day. And we go around making sure it's clean. We're picking up around that. And I think the only issue was last time was, as you said, Jonathan, the master plan approval, and we seem to be okay with that. It's not going to have any effect on the phase 2. And I think the other dog parks that I've seen that have these internal walkways around the inside perimeter have been very successful and well received, because it acts both as an exercise for the people that are there, as well as just a nice clean place to stand and out of any mud that happens to be there or anything else. Because I go and I clean the path at least a couple of times a week to make sure it's clear of debris and things like that as well. So if there's any other comments about it, I'm sure we could answer that too.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So what are the other dog parks you're referencing for comparison?
Well, Agawam has an internal walkway. That's we modeled it after that, actually. And that was, I talked to some, not only representatives there, but some patrons that go to that. And they think that was a great addition to the park. And also they thought it'd be a great addition to our park, and it would attract, more people that would be responsible for keeping it well maintained as well, because they've approached me about it and they love the phase 1, and it was so popular. Everybody's asking about that already, and they just wanted to make sure that we're continuing to phase 2, and we're excited about completing it.
So maybe the couple times I was there was just irresponsible dog owners there. And it's not reflective of the park.
Are you referring to what now?
Dog shit.
Well, it's a dog park. I mean, we have 2 bag dispensers. We have 2 barrels to throw it in. We have it in our rules. We have signs around, and we pick up, like I said, we pick up at least twice a day. We go through the park at least twice a day. I was there this afternoon, didn't find anything. It was totally clean. And it's typically what I find is maybe I'll find anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4, piles that I'll pick up. And it's not because of irresponsible owners. Sometimes they just miss it, you know. I mean, the park isn't that big, but sometimes if the dog just wanders away, you know, and goes while they're either on the phone or doing something else, you know, if we see it, we tell the owner that, hey, your dog is doing something over here. Can you take care of that? And 90% of the time, you know, they do keep an eye on their own dogs. They're pretty good about that. And as I said, you know, we maintain that on a daily basis. And, you know, I don't think it's a major issue. If you look at other dog parks, even Agawam's park is 2 acres. You can't, you know, your dog is so far away, you can't even see if what it's doing. At least ours is small enough where it's very controllable and manageable. So we feel like we have a pretty good control over the rules there, including picking up after a dog.
Well, it wasn't just the dog park, it was the park in general. You mean, walking around, there was dog feces, and it just, you know, it's not what I want to see in my town parks, but honestly.
You mean the dog park or Heritage Park in general?
Well, the dog park, certainly, but Heritage Park in general.
Well, I have no control over any of that. I just have the confines of the fence.
Yes, I understand that, but that is the draw. So if you have, you know, dog owners going there to the draw and they're not being responsible owners in the park itself or in the dog park, it just reflects poorly on the park. That's my point.
I understand. I think
You know,
before the dog park the dog park's been there for 9 years now. And before the dog park was there, it was a wooded lot like the rest of the park. It was being used by sometimes undesirables were in there sleeping overnight. And once we opened up the park, it's responsible owners that go to dog parks. The people that are not responsible don't care about a dog park. They just let their dogs out in the streets, or they just walk them outside the park. These are responsible people that have been there. We have a lot of regulars that are there on a regular basis. And, you know, I don't see that as I said. I mean, one person came to me a couple of years ago and said, gee, you know, it smells like dog poop. And I told her, I said, it's a dog park. I mean, that's what it is. It doesn't mean that it's dirty or it's not picked up. It's just that even when it's in the barrels, it's still going to be there. But the thing is, this is such an asset. If you talk to the people that use that, it's such an asset to not only the town, but to any dog owners. We have a registration process, and I have over 1,000 dogs registered to that park. So, and to register to the park, you have to have rabies shots. You have to have a license in any town that you're coming from. So, you know, where it's at, and that's how we get our donations as well. But that's how, you know, we're the only one that has that. We're the only dog park that I know of that has that process. And that's to help not only to, you know, provide for a safe environment for the dogs and the people, but to have a place for the dogs to play as well and they socialize. You know, that's one reason we do that as well.
Okay.
they may need to take another visit.
So I want to ask one question. So who enforces that? Is there somebody there all day long to make sure that these dogs are vaccinated? I mean,
well, no.
how do you know that?
Well, we can't have 24/7 monitoring, although we wouldn't mind a lot having that. That would be great. But we have monitors there during the busy times. You know, during like after work hours and on weekends, we have monitors there. So yeah, when a dog registers to the park, we issue them a tag. It's a color-coded tag, and it indicates that they've had their shots and everything. It's not 100%. You know, you're never going to get 100%, but we're the only park that I know of that has anything even like that. You go to any other dog park, and there is no process like that. There's nothing to indicate whether the dogs are safe or not. At least we have that much. So, and we have registration forms are right on the gate as you enter, and there's a big sign there that says stop. Make sure your dog is registered to enter the park. We can't stop them from coming in. And again, you know, in discussions we've had in the past, this is a public park. You know, we can't, there's only so many restrictions we could put on it. And however, we do have the backing of the police as well. So if somebody is disregarding the rules of the dog park, even though it's part of Heritage Park, which is a public park, we have the backing of the police department to follow up with any kind of problems that we have with dog owners or dogs themselves. We've had animal control contact us with looking for information on dogs that we have that they don't have, because we have dogs registered that are from out of town, and the town animal control only has the local licenses. So we've provided information to animal control that they don't even have when dogs have been involved in with incidents or anything like that. So, you know, our record keeping is always on top of things too.
By your record keeping or your estimation, how many incidents are there a year there? Or police or animal control has to be called?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
By your record keeping or accounting, how many incidents are there a year?
Oh, geez, that's probably three or four at the most. And no, and that's just you know, when there is an incident, you know, we always follow up to see if they went to a vet, you know, and we follow up to how the dog is. And there's only one time over the years actually where a dog has actually had to be quarantined because they weren't sure at the time if the dog had shots or not, because it actually wasn't registered with us. So the dog was quarantined, and the other dog that was involved was registered to us. So we were able to communicate with them and provide information to both parties as far as, you know, names, addresses, phone numbers, and everything else, so they could communicate. We're not liable for anything, but we have the information. If there is an incident, we have the information needed to follow up with it.
Any human bites?
No, nothing. I mean, we had scratches, you know, I've got scratches all over me, but, you know, it's nothing, not aggression towards any people that I know of.
And you're required to carry the insurance?
There's no insurance involved. We're just part of, we're like a baseball field in Heritage Park. You know, that, you know, and on the rules posted at the park, it says use of the park is at your own risk. You know, and the town and the dog park is not liable for any injuries or property damage. And that's a state law anyway. You know, the state law says it's strict liability for dog bites and damage done by a dog. It's strict liability where the owner is responsible 100%. So all we do is provide the space and provide information. That's all we do. We went through all this whole process when we built the park, the whole liability issue. We went through town council, the planning board, conservation. We went through every board and answered these types of questions 9 years ago. And that's when they approved it and said, well, you know, okay, the bottom line is, you know, the dog park budget pays for everything that you see at the dog park, but the town owns it. If, you know, if something happens, you know, they could do anything, the town can do anything they want. They could take the fence down, they could remove it, you know, and that was the deal, is that, you know, we're using the property within the park, but the town owns it. We paid for it, but the town basically owns it.
The town owns the liability.
Well, as much as they do a baseball field. I mean, it's nothing. It's got nothing to do with the dog, you know, dog bites or anything like that. You know, if a tree falls on somebody, doesn't matter if it's in a dog park or not. You know, there's no liability to the dog park. or the town, other than being a park.
So
Yeah, I remember when we went through the whole thing 9 years ago, and I was just generally not in favor. It's not my vision, but that's my opinion.
So the exact price or the exact
Thank you.
ask is, I apologize. It is $7,500 that is being requested by the CPA. For the CPC, the total project is $8,500 with $1,000 of it coming from privately from the park, the dog park organization that had originally requested.
Yeah, and that estimate was last year, and if you're looking at getting it done next year, that estimate's going to be basically 2 seasons old, but we're not changing our request. The dog park will pick up any change in the estimate from the contractor. The dog park will pick up that expense as well.
One other just point I want to make quickly about it is, I know there was this discussion, I think, at the last meeting when we discussed this, and I've heard this, the possibility of Heritage Park kind of undergoing some big changes and there be sort of a big development. I know there's been, architectural designs and plans that have been made on Heritage Park. Personally, I that isn't inhibiting me from supporting this proposal, largely because it's on the edge of the park, and all of these additions will probably be made on other sides of the park. And also the idea of this project taking place in Heritage Park, this could be years away, whereas this is sort of a right now project. And, the idea of this major overhaul at Heritage Park could take, many years. Maybe it could be someday a CPC backed or supported project, and there could be some very worthwhile investments into Heritage Park, but I don't see that happening immediately. So I know that was somewhat of a concern by some people that might be happening soon, but just from what I've heard, I don't see that happening really anytime soon. I could be wrong, but that's just sort of my gauge of things.
My personal opinion is I don't think it's been maintained well over the years. I mean, you guys may have had years where you were on top of it, but there's been some years when management has been really lacking in being involved with the town DPW, that, there's shared views as far as the management of that dog park. Me personally, I'm not in favor of expanding it for a multitude of reasons. I was never big on it. It does come with a smell. My opinion that the feces that are in the park, while they may not be a direct correlation, I'm sure there is a correlation to the traffic to the dog park and irresponsible owners. There is a larger plan for heritage. If the dog park is going to have a place, I mean, that would be front and center. And if some of those trees are cleared, it would, need to be even better managed than it is currently. You want to grow it, and in my opinion, it hasn't been well managed. So I say, my opinion is you leave it the same size it is, or if there's going to be expanded work at Heritage, it's going to have to go in a place where it's well in the back.
Well, we're not talking about any expansion of the park at all. We're talking about everything within the confines of the fence. And I'd like you to give me an example of not being well managed, because we've had just the opposite opinion from everybody that I know. Can you give me an example of not being well managed? Because I'm the one that manages it, and I'd like to know that.
Well, I can remember a couple of different conversations and a couple of times I've gone over the years, and it just didn't present well.
I need examples.
So
That's
I think-
not an example.
I think we're
different opinions.
I think we're slightly deviating off from
Yes.
the actual sidewalk itself, not to butt in. But I kind of want there to be some type of action. It could be either no action, or or somebody brings up a motion. Usually it would be a motion to approve. And then we can do the yays and nays. But I just want something, just so that now we're entering into another application season. I just don't want this to fall on the wayside. I want to give the applicant just the ability to kind of plan on their end to see how this committee feels about it. because then it would still need to go onto the process once more to the council if approved. So does anybody have any final thoughts or comments related to the walkway itself?
I just got one question. Is the walkway ADA compliant?
No, and it's not meant to be. You know, when we built the park 9 years ago, that was part of the application, was that it was not going to be, it was not intended to be ADA compliant. Because we'd have to put railings in from the parking lot and other things as well. It's just, I mean, it does provide assistance for disabled people. I mean, we've had a lot of positive comments from people with wheelchairs and on crutches that can use the walkway because it's flat and smooth compared to the wood chips on the ground otherwise. But it's not ADA compliant. It was never meant to be.
Okay, so you have people there with dogs that actually use the sidewalk now that are in wheelchairs or crutches that really that need to use this walkway.
Yes, we do. And we have owners that actually, we talk about responsible owners again, they'll come and without me being there, and they'll clean. We have brooms and shovels and things like that where owners actually clean the walkway themselves. You know, if they see it needs to be cleaned, we have plenty of really good, positive and responsible dog owners that will clean the sidewalk even when I'm not there, just to keep it clear. That has been a positive thing with the sidewalk as well. And I think when it's completed all the way around, it'll be a very positive addition to the park.
Okay.
How often do you change the wood chips during the year?
We get new loads annually, and they're donated by local tree companies. And you know, we've got 9 years worth of wood chips, so you can imagine how much we have there. And that actually helps quite a bit because it absorbs and dries up moisture very well. We concentrate on areas that are heavy use, you know, to put the majority of the wood chips that we get, but we usually get new surface every year during the season.
Are you taking the wood chips out every year?
No, we don't remove them.
You're just adding on top of it?
Well, yeah, because the wood chips disintegrate and becomes part of the ground, just like in the forest or anywhere else. And the leaves, you know, the leaves that fall just disintegrate as part of the ground. And actually that's a positive thing because it keeps down the weeds and grass, which attract ticks and bugs. The dog park is like an oasis in the park from ticks and bugs because they don't like wood chips. You won't find bugs and ticks in the dog park because they do not like wood chips. So that's one reason why we keep it that way. But basically they just disintegrate from use and from natural disintegration. It just goes into the ground, which is why we have to do it every year. That's why we have to replace it every year.
So is there an action that we would like to take? I would entertain any motions at this point in time?
Were you looking for a motion to continue or a motion to approve it?
Either one. Whatever the board's pleasure.
I make a motion to continue it.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of continuing it?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so that motion clearly passes, so we will continue the project for the next meeting.
Next meeting.
Okay.
I'll have a chance to look.
So hopefully at that point, then we'll have maybe look at it a little bit further for the new members. And if they have any thoughts, please give them to us or express them at the next meeting. So, okay, we will continue.
Was there anything that I can do from my end at this point or not?
If there are any other questions that the committee has, I can bring them to Bill, but I personally don't have any questions. I've looked over the project pretty thoroughly and I'm pretty intimately involved, but I know some members are new here, so that's understandable if they want to look at it further. So if there are any questions, I will reach out to you, Bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go on. We have two applications still to look over. So now we only got two for the October 1st deadline. The first one that I received was the historical records preservation. This was submitted by the town clerk, Jeannie Quaglietti. I think she might be in the audience. She was going to speak on the project. What I hope with this project and the next project, unlike the project that we just discussed, I kind of want from both Jeannie and Jeff representing the wall ball, just sort of a overview of the project, some kind of first questions, and then we can sort of maybe move on. And hopefully if we get a lot of those questions that might not be able to get answered this evening, we can get them answered by the November meeting. So then we can kind of have the applicants go along their way, depending on what the committee's pleasure is at that point. What I want to start doing is try to button up the process so that maybe we're spending, a 3-month timeline max on these projects, so that we can then, give the applicants either a yay or a nay decision on it. But we're under a little bit of a unique situation. We saw a tremendous turnover. We have basically 4 actually new or semi-new members. One of them was unable to make it this evening. So I understand the importance of them trying to catch up and kind of digest these applications. So with that, I will let Jeannie talk about the application before us this evening.
Can you hear me and see me all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not used to being on this side of the Zoom, so. So the project is really 2-part. The first part is an assessment cost, and then the second part is the actual work of the project. And the assessment in my application, it's a 4-day assessment costing a little over $3,000. And the vendor comes into the basement. I don't know if you've ever been down there. It's a mess. And they look at all the records down there, and they compare it to the records retention schedule. The state has a records retention schedule that shows what each department is required to keep by law. Some records are 2 years. For instance, our ballots for the elections, for state elections, we're required to keep for 22 months, then we can destroy them. Other records we have to keep indefinitely, mostly the clerk's office. Planning has a ton of records down there. I think planning and myself, and probably accounting, has some things down there that are regularly looked into as a result of public records requests or just for our own research for our own departments. So once they assess what's down there, and I brought John down there, he had the pleasure of touring the basement the other day. They make an analysis of how much the project will cost. And Chris Chartrand, who's the representative for King Information Systems, has seen the basement. He's been to the town hall a few times. He could not make it tonight, John. I reached out to him. But if you want to revisit this project again in November, he's available that night for your meeting, or he can, we can field any questions to him specific to what the project entails. But they will go in and they will look at the whole, all the files, all the records, and right away say, okay, you can purge all these according to the records retention schedule. So probably right away get rid of things. And after they assess also, they'll put a number on the project. And he said, based on our town size and what we have down there, it's probably 25 to 30,000 in addition to the assessment. And they literally go down there. It takes about 30 days. They go through everything. They build shelves. They number in the shelves by department. They rebox in protective boxes all the records and files and categorize them, inventory them, and put them all on a database. And once they're on a database, then they will alert us as to the records retention schedule, like a tickler system. Okay, this, you can get rid of these records according to the records retention schedule. They're on shelf 24, box 1B, and it's just a wonderful thing. It's a great starting process. I have references from over 120 town halls across the state they've done this for. And then after the project's done, they come in once a year for like an audit and a review. They have somebody come and take a look, see if anything needs to be changed or altered based on what's happened over the last year. That's about $600 a year, and I would put that into my regular operating budget for my department. So my goal is to get this done. It's been a goal of Tom Florence's, who was the town clerk before me. I know, and honestly, this has been turned down by the CPC before because it was thought of as a housekeeping issue. I believe it's preservation of the records. One of the steps that we had to go through for this project before I came to you was to have the Historical Commission deem it as a preservation project, that all the records down there are valuable, historical valuable. And I got a formal vote from the Historical Commission to that end. That's in the application package that you have. I've got support from the town manager, from the planning director. Also, that's in the packet. And once this project was done, and they can do the assessment and the work within 45 days, then I'd like to do some imaging of the records down there. Bethany had wanted to come before the CPC. We talked about this last summer to digitize some of her records, but we don't even know what's down there. I showed John this bank of metal files, probably 8 rows deep, that were brought down from the selectman's office when they redid it for the town manager's office 4 years ago, whatever. We don't even know what's in there. There's also big ledgers, similar to the one when I swear people in office, that are from 1910, that are just wide open in boxes, and maps just stuffed in boxes. About, over the summer, 3 times there was water in the basement. And you can see in some of these pictures, the water got into some of the file boxes, or in the bottom of a pile, they all toppled over. So it's a real mess, and something needs to be done if we want to keep these records protected as long as we need to. So once I do this project, then I'd like to come forth to the CPC and then do imagery that, and the CPC has funded this before, digitize some of these records that Bethany wants to do, and also get a dehumidifier that is appropriately sized for the job it's supposed to do in that size of a basement. That dehumidifier that's down there that drains into a set tub is the same size that I have in my basement, and it's just not doing the trick. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, so I'll open it up to the board.
I have one question. Once this is done, how will you keep things in some type of order from that point on? Will there somebody be appointed in each department, or how is it going to? You said they're going to come in once a year to make suggestions, which will cost us money, which is on your budget.
Right.
But in between time, being a retired pharmacist, record keeping was always part of my job. So, and somebody has to stay on top of this, otherwise it gets really out of control.
That would be me. So prior to this, the clerk's office every 2-3 years would send a directive to the department heads, give them a copy of the records retention schedule and say, this is on you to do. You have to go down there and see what's what. This way it would be centralized through my office. So I would get the notification from King Information Systems through this database that, it's been 22 months since you had these ballots down here. You can destroy these. Some need permission. There's a form that you have to need permission from the state to do, and some don't. And I have all that information. So we'd have the auditor come from, once a year, go down there and see if we need to add shelves. My thing is, planning in towns, they never plan for growth. So all of a sudden, we've got records in the basement, we've got records in the attic, we've got records in the little schoolhouse, the COA basement. So nothing's centralized. You just grow out of space. My vault is so small, and that's going to be a problem in coming years. So you have to allow for growth with these things, and hopefully by purging some of the records that are there and getting rid of the file cabinets that were just brought down there. Nobody knows what's in there from the Board of Selectmen's office. So that would be on me. That'd be my office that would be responsible for that.
I see. And records that you didn't want to keep, that were legitimate to be destroyed. How would they go about doing that? Would they get somebody that would be a shredding outfit, or just dump them in the dumpster at the town hall?
Pretty much the dumpster.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because some ballots, like the local ballots, after 30
Yeah.
days, you can get rid of them. And I would say to myself, don't let anybody see you putting them in the dumpster, even though it's allowable. Everybody's always suspicious, So, yeah.
Smart lady. Use the darker bags. No. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments, clarification?
I just recently did a boot camp with CPA, and this was one of the questions that came up. And I would like someone here, other than me, call Stuart and ask to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. But what he explained it, how I understood it, is record retention is definitely on the town to do in their own budget. He did say if anything that is historic value, like if there is something the town wants to purchase, say a document dated in the 1800s that the town wants to purchase, we can use that. If there is, like you mentioned, the ledger books, if there's the 1910 ledger books, CPA could pay for that if there's mold on it, to clean it, to preserve it, but only those types of documents. Stuff that's 2 years old, they don't want anything to do with it. CPA is not involved in any of that stuff. Only old historic documents. That was my understanding. I think someone else in this committee should call Stuart and ask, make sure I'm right, but that was my understanding of it.
So, Jeannie, I know, I think you had were you able to?
Yes, I've been in contact with Stuart about this because I know that he had said at one point that CPA funds couldn't fund this. However, I've got applications from Wellfleet and from East Hampton, and they got CPA funding for this. So I pushed back on Stuart. I said, how can these projects be for this, the same vendor, the same projects? And he said, you'll have to ask the local communities for the information for their projects. We are not a state agency that oversees CPA. There have been over 12,000 projects, and we don't have the details on how communities decide on what to fund. So pretty much I interpret that is it's up to the interpretation of the CPA and if they want to fund it this way. There's really, I'm on the Munson CPA, I live in Munson, and the CPA, CPCs have a lot of power, and it's how they interpret it. And I feel, since I've got endorsement from the Historical Commission, and to me, if you have minutes that are yesterday's minutes, but you have to keep them forever, that's historical value. You have to protect them, and you have to make sure that they're being kept in a place that's going to be dry and stored in boxes that can be retrieved easily. So that's my opinion.
Are some of these records in what condition are they? If you've had water down there and everything, it's got to be pretty, I mean, I would think some of these records have got to be in sorry condition.
So I haven't looked in those boxes, but I looked at the labels, and from what I can see from the labels, they aren't anything that needs to be kept forever.
Okay.
And Lynn, talking about those ledgers, there are preservation funds that are allowable to actually put them in like glassine sleeves and things like that. I couldn't believe it. I showed John the books, and it's like 1910, and they're just sitting there, and these maps just crumpled up. So to me, anything that we have to keep forever, even for 22 months, is historical value to the town. And I think if that gets away from you, you lose that importance and integrity of the records for the town.
My first impression when I read this and went through it is I was uncomfortable with CPC paying for this because the records should be handled with each department. And I know it's gotten out of control. I understand what you're saying, and there's other issues, but and you're saying that we're going to pay, you know, your committee will pay every year to have them kind of watchdog this and see it. And
Right, my
that
department.
doesn't make sense to me when you have employees around that, you know, I mean, I'm just going by how Costco, for instance, ran their records, which is a pretty successful company. We did not bring anyone in. It was all internal. What
Right.
each department took care of it. So I was concerned about spending that kind of money, to tell you the truth. So I'm interested in maybe further deciding how we're going to handle this.
Well, I can, what I might want to do with that is maybe do it for a year or two and see just what that audit and review entails. And, you know, if Chris were here, he could answer that better than I can.
Well, I'm concerned about the $35,000 upfront.
And 60% of that is materials, and because they're going to bring in all the shelving and all the boxes, and, you know, boxes that are made for protecting files. It's a lot of work if you've seen that basement and going through those metal files, and it's a lot of work. And they have the expertise to do it. They've done it, like I said, for almost 120 towns. They've been in Longmeadow, they've been in Ludlow, nearby towns.
And all authorized by CPC?
I
Without the money?
don't think so. I think Longmeadow did. And like I said, I know Greenfield and Wellfleet did. There are a couple of others too, across the state.
I have the opportunity, I can pass along both of those applications for you all to take a look at and digest between now and our next meeting as well. I just had received them very recently, and I kind of pelted you guys with a bunch of stuff. So I will absolutely send those two applications over for your review. Kind of just judging from the time, I'll kind of allow maybe like one more question, then I want to get on to our next application, just so that we can maybe get out of here by 8. We will have the opportunity to discuss this, you know, in November. And if there's any more documents or information.
I just want to say something. Jane, I'm really all for this. I know when I applied for funds to digitize the documents on the Historical Commission, Tom Florence had called me a few days after that. He wanted to really pursue that. And, you know, with some of these projects that we've passed in the past, this is definitely a project deemed worthy of CPC funds.
I think so too, obviously.
I know Stuart once said, hey, once the money leaves the state, you can basically do what you want with it, you know, within reason.
Right. And then it's up to your committee to deem, you know, if you
Right.
if you don't, I mean, that's up to you too. But if you do, you still have to go through town council approval too, of course, as you all know. So, but they're all aware too of the condition down there and some of the records, and for the next step to be the imaging, which is definitely covered by CPA funds. To me, you have to get through this first, and to me, it's all part of the same project. It's preserving the records.
Right. No, I think it's a worthwhile project.
Thank you.
I think the project's kind of worthwhile, even though, you know, it was done in the past. You said we spent $25,000 back in 2015. I'm not sure what they did, but it seems
No, what was that? What are you referring to in 2015, 20?
there was a project approved for,
There's a historic, yeah, there's a
Historic, it was
preservation.
never completed.
it was never completed.
Right.
That's what I
I
was wondering.
started it and I was never completed.
So, okay,
The money is spent.
So the money was turned back in.
it was turned back.
What I was able to get done was all the town reports. from
Okay.
1890 up until present.
Oh,
And that's all online.
My real question comes down to, we talk about preservation, but is the facility adequate for storing all this material?
It can be if you get the right equipment down there.
Sounds like a moldy basement.
It sounds like a moldy basement that's flooded all the time. We got files upstairs on the second floor that just sent me pictures on that tells me that it's inadequate for all of the files that should be. I mean, when I went to look at the the DPW office, I walked by files. I could have taken anything out of that file and walked out the door. They're not secured. So are all the files going in the basement where they're secured and safe? Because,
Well, I assume this is what she's getting. They're gonna get it organized and they're gonna,
well, getting organized is one thing. Having an adequate facility to facilitate those organized records is another thing.
well, that's Jane.
That's, is a facility adequate enough for space? You talk about growth.
Is the basement enough, Jane? I mean,
Well, the thing is, the records are all over town. Like I said, they're in the attic, they're at the old schoolhouse, there's some in the COA building. So I would ask the department heads, you know, in the last 6 months, have you gone down to the basement to retrieve records? Well, if not, then they shouldn't be there. I know my department goes down there quite often. Planning goes down there quite often to retrieve old records. So it's not being utilized by a lot of people. We've got 2 vaults in the town hall, one in my office, which is getting full, and one in where Olga Bones sits right now that's full. There's no room for growth. There really isn't. And there's an old boiler that needs to be removed from the COA basement. And Mary McNally is trying to get one repaired or replaced and to get the other one out of there. So she's hoping to have more storage down there. Another record.
so, I mean, if this goes through, I mean, in order to keep that cellar dry and will this be adequate? Will there be enough room down there?
Well, that's why I'd like to apply for a project for a dehumidifier system down there to help with that.
And I'm sure you contacted Bruce Finney.
And this is very common. Well, this would be CPA funded because CPA has funded that before for, because it's typical. You're in Massachusetts, so a lot of town halls are in, you know, buildings that are over 100 years old. So it's a common problem.
No, but I mean, you've talked to Bruce, what your needs are in that basement before this thing goes through.
I haven't talked to Bruce, no.
So
I mean, I did contact him when there was water down there, just to let him know that there was water down there. And I was told it was because the sump pump was malfunctioning. It wasn't because of the rain, but the rain, I had a sump pump in my house once. When you get a heavy rain, the sump pump, you know, flows over and everything, so.
I know at the Little Red Schoolhouse, I know there's a lot of books down there.
Yeah.
You can't even restore them. They were thrown in there 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And these were the books that were in the town hall, in that cabinet. And they were all taken out and thrown up there.
Yeah,
So
right.
I can see where, you know, we're gonna do something, do it right.
well, that's my point is,
Well, I mean, this is gonna be the location you get in the basement of the town hall.
Right, and the big advantage is it's handy. It's, you know, if we need something, we can go down to the basement and find it. But
And they're gonna supply the shelves, they're gonna build the shelves. I mean, when's the last time you guys had more than an inch of water down there? Has it been up higher than that, or?
there was, in late July, which we had a lot of rain, there was, I would say, an inch in some places. Towards the back corner, there was puddled water down there.
it's the humidity that destroys records.
Well,
You got moisture all over
Right.
the place. You got water all over the freaking place. It's been known for the town hall for years. And everybody's trying to put records all different places. But
I mean, as far as the historical records, if you would keep those dry and you would keep them in those boxes that protect them.
Mhm.
The other things that, you know, you keep for 22 months, well, you put on the lower shelves. I don't know. But
Right,
yeah, it's a start.
right.
So looking at the time, Jeannie, thank you for coming on with us this evening.
Well,
I
thank
know
you.
we'll be discussing this more in November, give the committee to look at the application further. And so, yeah, if the representative could come on, that could be helpful.
Okay.
In answering if people have other questions, different questions at that point. And I will make sure to send over those 2 applications to everybody. And please, you know, feel free to ask me any questions and I can have them relayed and we can get those answered between now and November. So,
That'd be perfect. John, you can just let me know, you know, funnel any questions they have and send them to me, and I'll let Chris know that we can both be at the November meeting. So that'd be great.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Bye, Jane.
All right, so we are moving on to the final application that we're going to be discussing this evening. Jeff, I appreciate you staying for the whole time, through the whole meeting, so we really appreciate that.
No problem.
So Jeff is here representing the wall ball application. So this is sort of a wall, or I'll let Jeff explain, but this will be located at the high school. This is another application that came in October 1st, and you all should have gotten a physical copy of it, and also I think a digital copy. If not, please let me know if you need any other information on it, because I know it's a large packet. So with that, Jeff, I'll let you explain the project to the committee and the public.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to present it. Hopefully you've got a chance to look through the packet. But essentially what this proposal is it's a wall, like a wall in many other communities that have been built for kids and for recreation. It's about 16 feet tall, approximately 39 to 40 feet wide. And it's used by many sports, primarily lacrosse, but also field hockey. It can be used for other sports, and at times is to practice, like baseball, softball, soccer. But it's an opportunity, it's a place for people to congregate and practice their sports on their own. It came about, John asked, how did it come about? It came about because my daughter and some other kids that I know we were having to hop in the car and drive to Long Meadow, which is really the only other community that's close by that actually has an actual practice wall. And I'm not a lacrosse dad, I'm not a lacrosse background, but when I was there, it kind of occurred to me, when I saw a lot of other kids and a lot of other sports using the wall, why not East Long Meadow? And I just started to ask around and look into it. I talked to some people in the rec department. I talked to coaches of the various high school teams. Started talking to some kids, and just came up with the idea, and I kind of ran with it from there. And as you can tell from the package, I got a lot of other people involved. I spoke to the athletic director at the high school. I talked to some people in the rec department. I went to one of their meetings. They ran it by, I think, the superintendent. We came up with, we thought through the location. And as you'll see from the packet, the proposed location is at the high school, past, if you're at the soccer field, it's past the bleachers on the right. And the wall would basically be replacing about 40 feet wide of the fence. The fence would connect to the wall. And the reason for that is because they want to make sure that the fence maintains so that there's not a complete open space, so people can jump over the fence to get to games and things like that and avoid paying. And the way in which the wall extends is it would extend, you'd have the wall that goes up, and then there'd be a turf location on each side of the wall. Approximately, it can range anywhere from about 25 feet to upwards of 40 feet on 35 feet or so on each side of the wall. So that really you're getting a double practice space. You can have multiple people playing different sports at the same time. The wall would be wide enough where, you wouldn't have one person occupying it. You could have multiple people practicing multiple different sports on both sides of the wall. The location has essentially been approved. I think Kevin McGee has mapped out the location, and it would not interfere with anything else that goes on at the high school. Anyway, we know that cross country runs through there for their events. John, you've got personal experience with that. So we made sure that where the turf was going to be expanded did not interfere with anything else that goes on, either with high school sports, with other types of recreation, with things that I think there's a senior center or senior group that puts on a variety of
senior formal.
Yeah. There's just a lot of things that we know that goes on there throughout the year, and it wouldn't interfere with that. I've proposed, as part of the proposal with eLeaf, some protective netting on the side, which, you know, the athletic department really likes, and will allow an opportunity for goals, so lacrosse goals and field hockey goals, and so, you know, potentially, you know, the smaller soccer goals to be on the side, so that when kids are practicing against the wall, their dribbling skills, their passing skills, or their stick skills, there would still be a place for them on the side where they could also shoot, and the balls wouldn't be, you know, potential to injure anybody else or travel beyond. And they like that idea because I think that the high school, Kevin McGee or whoever's in charge of the high school, is frequently asked by either other coaches or parents or members of the community, why aren't there, you know, for now it's soccer season, why isn't there a lacrosse goal out there when the field's not being used for my kid to practice, or why isn't there a field hockey goal? So it provides an opportunity for practice. You'll see as part of the proposal, we've gotten quotes for the construction. eLeaf has agreed to take care of the cost of the construction, which ranges, I think it's approximately $10,000 to have it construction, so that the wall can be put in and that the ground can be flat and leveled or whatever needs to be done in order for the turf to come in. I know I put in the proposal an estimate of $20,000 for turf. That estimate, I didn't have any at the time. I do have some as of today, and I'd like to increase that estimate to $30,000 because it's about, I'm being told that depending on what type of turf you get, the range is going to be somewhere at the low end of $8 per square foot and at the high end $10 per square foot. I've gotten a couple of different quotes that I haven't been able to analyze, but the quotes have fit right within there. So I've got somebody with a verbal 8 to 10. I've got a quote in front of me for about $25,000, which I'm gathering is at the low end. I have another quote that's $29,000 something. And so I feel very confident that with a $30,000 quote, we're going to be able to get whatever a good grade turf and a high quality installer to put that in. The other part of the proposal is that the community will raise the amount for the protective netting, which I got the quote from a company, Sports Field Specialties, which I know that the athletic department at the high school has used before. That amount is about $5,801. So I will promise to raise that money through private funding or through booster clubs or from some other source. So the ask for community preservation would be for community preservation to pay for the cost of the wall itself.
The turf.
And the turf.
So that would be.
Is the turf artificial?
The turf isn't, it's an artificial turf.
So it would be about, so instead of $46,560, it would be $56,560.
Correct. And if there are any increases, any increases in any of the other estimates, I would make sure that that money is raised privately. And it does. It sounds like a lot. You know, the turf. There's no way to get around the price of the turf from the quotes that I've gotten. Everybody says that's the range. You know, and the wall itself, it's something that lasts forever. This is not something that requires any maintenance. It does bring a lot of people together. It is going to improve. The youth athletics in East Long Meadow. It's going to improve East Long Meadow High School athletics, and in turn, it's just going to be a big improvement. There's really no reason why, you know, kids in this community should have to travel to another community to practice. Or, you know, I'm the tennis coach in town for the high school, and I watched the high school girls practice, and the girls were throwing the lacrosse ball at the school wall, like literally at the school for practice. And if you had,
they would do that all the time when I was in high school practicing, and they just do it right on the wall there nearby the tennis courts.
Yeah, and you know, there's you know, you could use it for tennis. You could use it for tennis as well. I know that there's a backboard there, but if you can bring all these different kids together, from all these different backgrounds, you know, practicing all these sports at one location. I just think it's a, you know, it's a great thing. So it has a lot of support. You'll see in there that I've gotten the letters of support. I can certainly get a whole bunch more, just given how quickly the October 1st deadline came up from when the project gets started. I didn't have an opportunity to get more, but I'm sure that all the youth sports coordinators, youth sports coaches would be in full support of it. You know, there's other communities. I've put in the other communities here throughout Massachusetts where I was able to get information off of the internet. You know, the price is really reasonable, and it's very hard to find. It was very hard to find these actually prefabricated pieces that are going to be used to install this, because the cost of doing it in some of these other towns that did it, they used concrete, just regular concrete. So I don't know how it's done. Somebody else here knows, but I guess you got to pour it, you put the concrete in, and the cost to do that would probably be, my guess would be double the price of what these prefabs are. It's a one-day project as well. This isn't something that's going to take a lot of time. I talked about it. It's a one-day job for the general contractor to come in and do what they need to do to prep it. It's a one-day, it's a couple-hour job for the delivery and the install. And then the turf, I'm guessing as well, is probably just a one-day project. So all in all, at most, it would take 3 days to complete. And I'm hoping that this is something that you guys will seriously consider and can get funded and done for the spring. So, I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Just thank you for coming. As I was looking through this application, I know we had discussed it on the phone. One thing that I've already started reaching out to and looking for, it's going to be important to see where how school committee feels about the project, and the town manager's office, just to both let them know about the project, but then secondly, considering this is school property, but also town property, it's good to kind of, what we traditionally like to do is kind of keep them in the loop. And if, I don't necessarily think that'll be the case with this project, but if, there's some serious misgivings or like this project, we can't do this, but it sounds like you've reached out to Kevin already, which is great. So Kevin's on board with sort of, you didn't say there's any maintenance, but he would be comfortable with kind of like overseeing it or supervising it, whatever there might be maintenance down. If there's any issues with it down the road, he would be okay with kind of it being there.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. And I understand as well that he ran, I know that Gordon Smith is involved as well. At least he's aware of the project, and I believe that has the support of the superintendent. I know that because they were involved in coming up with the location and the plan and the whole bit. So, that wasn't the first site that I chose. It worked its way through to get to where it is now.
So I'll open up to the committee. Are there any initial questions, thoughts, comments?
Just because Long Meadow is next door, was that the same type of wall we would put up? They have. It's not concrete. It's not. That's how. So that's how we found out that it was prefabricated. I had one contractor go over there that came back and told me, and also the girls' high school lacrosse coach did some digging on her own and actually found out that they were prefab, and got a quote from I was only able to find 2 places that even had it in the entire country. So that's how we found out that theirs was done prefab. So it's the same way. It's basically going to be done the exact same way that theirs is, give or take the size of the turf. So if you think about the turf, I think their turf over there, I measured it out, is about 20 feet on each side. So theirs is really a total of 40 by 40. So it's maybe 1,600 square feet. So depending on what I guess the school, when it's all finalized, how big the turf is, means that the price of the turf could probably, I say it's 30,000, but that's that's with 40 feet of turf on both sides, which is really, which might be excessive. So I'm guessing at that $30,000 quote level.
So it's probably on the high end.
Is probably on the high end, because I don't know if we've completely measured out exactly how far on each side of the wall that the athletic director, the school department, this committee, whoever makes the decision is going to be comfortable. I'm sure that 25 feet is fine. I just don't know if if it makes sense, or if they want to get it up to 40 feet on each side.
I think 40 foot is a more tenable number. From growing up in this town and playing lacrosse and soccer, there used to be a wall at Maple Street. And I can't tell you how many days of my life that I spent playing on that wall, and that thing was great. And I watched my kids play on the wall at school days of their lives, and I think it's a great idea. 100% minded.
Thank you.
Yeah, he did an excellent report. It would be for, it would be
Does the CPA pay for artificial turf?
The CPA can pay for it.
It can? Because I thought it would not be able to pay for it.
There has been projects that I've researched in the past where they supported soccer fields and like football fields that have had artificial turf. As we were talking with Janie, and I'm sure in discussions we've had in the past, the one big surprise that I found with this committee is there's at the local level, there's a lot of we have a lot of broad control over what we define as CPC or CPA worthy for what we don't. There's certain guardrails we can't pay somebody's salary, or we can't, pay for electric bill or something like that. And there's been some times where communities have gotten in trouble with how they've used this money. I know there was a case, I think in the Plymouth area, a community put in, a couple $100,000 worth of sidewalks. They were sued. The case went to the state judicial court, and they told the town you can't use these funds for them. So there are guardrails in place, but in the case of the AstroTurf or the other application, it's pretty much up to our purview. What we believe does this fit those goals that are kind of laid out in open space or rec or historic. It's sort of the decision of the members that are appointed here.
Also, I would like to see letters of support from the school committee, from the athletic director, because it's going to be at the high school. You say that minimal work to be supported, but the netting on the sides, that even in the quote, has to be taken down and taken down in the fall or and put up in the spring, I would assume, is that the manufacturer recommended that. So I assume who would be doing that? Is it the athletic department, or is it going to end up with the DPW department to put this artificial netting up and taking it, maintaining that area?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm happy to address it, but that's a really good point. So I learned that there's two types of netting. You can get like a permanent type, which I think is what this proposal is, but I'd have to put my glasses on and read through it again.
Yep.
And you can also get ones that are a little more portable that can go up and down. And so the pricing, I don't think there is a little difference in pricing. I don't think it's significantly different. I don't think like one's half of one, it might be like 80% or 90%. So I think that this is a permanent netting structure.
I wasn't sure. I agreed with myself, to be honest with you. That's why I'm bringing up the question. There will be some maintenance if it isn't of removing it during the wintertime and stuff, and putting it back up and things.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested that the school department with the athletic department would maintain it as any other apparatus that's being used by the schools athletic department of different sports, whether it's lacrosse or field hockey or whatever.
I'll get that from. I will reach out to Kevin McGee and get something.
They're going to be the ones. They're going to be the ones using it mostly. There's always going to be some kids that go over that are under high school age to use it, but it's an apparatus for high school sports all the way around. I played a lot of sports all my life and in high school, college and stuff, but it would be a great advantage to have that at the high school level. And I'm not sure where the younger age groups practice, but I'm sure they all don't practice at the high school.
They do, yeah.
You know, so it'll be on an individual basis to go over. But it's an apparatus to be added to the athletic department of the high school. And I think it would be a great asset for training and practicing. Like Tom says, his experience just here in town, but my experience was in another town, in another area of playing sports. But overall, it would be a definite benefit for the town to have that. I was just concerned about the turf, and now you're telling me it's going to be artificial turf. I wasn't sure if it was going to be artificial turf, because if it wasn't, then that's another maintenance problem.
Right. Yeah, big time.
Big time is right. And who would do that?
Yeah, no.
You know, is it going to be another field for the DPW to maintain if it wasn't AstroTurf? And even with AstroTurf, there might be some maintenance to some degree, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
They would know from
the field that, you know, the soccer field.
the soccer field and all
Are we
that.
gonna need a water bomb for that too, like they did with the football field?
Uh,
A water, what do they call that?
I'm not sure, a water bottle,
Yeah,
Water cannon.
water cannon?
yeah.
Uh,
When it reaches a certain temperature, you gotta keep that AstroTurf
Cool.
cool.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it heats
I
up.
learned something.
it heats up.
It-
So check into that.
I will, I'll look.
And who would do that? Yeah.
Irrigation system,
It's a pretty small.
Those are the kind of things that I'd be interested in understanding. And,
Sure.
and even if the project goes ahead, all I'm looking for is who's going to be doing what to maintain an asset that we put in town that we're going to spend $50,000 on. I'm in favor of it, but I want to know who's going to take responsibility of doing things to maintain something that we spend that kind of money on.
yeah, I hate to have you come back with the artificial turf, say, oh, you dried up.
No, I'll get it.
No,
What I'll do is
$30,000. I mean, the football field, you know, they have to keep it cool, so.
I will, I'll get answers to those two questions from Kevin McGee, and if it's okay with you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. Maybe it makes sense for me to do that, get something in writing and submit it to you.
That'd be excellent.
And
Then I can
that way it
make
can
an
be
announcement.
before your next meeting, you'll have that information.
Yeah, I just want someone to sign up that we can point to say they're going to be responsible for maintaining equipment that we put in town to support our sports recreation department.
Good.
Or recreation department or athletic department, whatever
Sure.
one you want to call it.
Do we need turf? If you put the wall in, do you need the turf?
Yeah, I thought about that. You really do, because otherwise a couple of things, you're stuck with the grass. And so what happens is the two things. One, it's got to be maintained, and it's going to get wrecked because kids are going to be playing on it all day long. It'll be worse than it'll be worse than dogs running around all over the place. And secondly, the other thing is that you need something for balls like lacrosse balls, field hockey balls, soccer balls, baseball, softballs, that is going to get like a consistent bounce, so that when they are using it, they can practice. I actually asked if basketballs would bounce, and they said not really, because if you go out on the turf at the field or you go around the track, you'll see that the balls will bounce enough to practice, but it's not something like pavement where it's going to be, or wood that's going to be bouncing all up. So I just think over the long haul, for community preservation purposes, that the turf is going to be a better fit long term.
You're right. The ball does respond differently depending on the composite of the material on the walls. I played racquetball. I played racquetball for 35 years. Playing against cement walls or composite walls, the ball reacts differently, different speeds. It'll throw your timing off if you're a sports player. So the turf is the same way. You got to know what you're playing on and how it's going to react. The more experience you have in practicing, the better you get. So you're a little bit flexible. If you don't have that ability to practice on a particular field and be consistent on it, you're going to be inconsistent when you go to play.
So sort of just kind of looking at the time, I think this is a very productive conversation. So what we'll do is we'll sort of meet back on this matter in November. We'll get those questions answered, get the school committee opinion, hopefully the town manager as well, being the town property, and then the turf, the question.
I have a question about the cement. You're mentioning lacrosse players, lacrosse coaches, and field hockey. The composition of those balls are a lot different than soccer,
Yeah, they are.
softball, and baseball. You throw a baseball against a solid cement wall about 3 times, you can't use it in game.
Yeah, you know, I agree with that, but in doing my research and looking at the sports that use a wall for practice, and there is softball and baseball, and you're right, but they don't necessarily have to use a baseball or a softball to throw it against the prefab wall. A lot of times, just to get used to their glove skills, they use a tennis ball to practice off that wall. I mean, they could use a lacrosse ball or anything else. They're not really using it as like for baseball and softball. They're not using it for pitching. You're more using it for, you're not gunning it at 60, 70 miles an hour against that wall. You're really using it for your glove skills and your fielding and your footwork when you're looking at, those 2 sports in particular.
Is it possible one side cement, the other side like more of a vinyl or something? So those sports I mentioned could use that?
Unfortunately, the answer to that is no, because the way that these are they're prefab concrete barriers. I'm told they're sort of like the barriers that you see on the highway.
Okay.
So they're made of the same thing. They're made of the same thing on both sides.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
So with that, unless anybody has anything else pressing, Jeff, thank you very much for coming this evening.
I'll also get the quote. So the other thing, I'll also get you a quote for the turf.
Yes.
I just want to know what the turf, like, what is the square footage of the turf? What are we talking about?
So the proposals that's in front of you is it's going to be 40 feet wide, which is essentially the same side of the width of the wall. And then on each side of the wall, the proposal has 40 feet on about 35 feet on each side of the wall.
So 40 by 30 on each side?
Yeah, so the turf that I got quoted was a total of 40 by 80, because there's going to be a little bit of the wall that covers there. So it's 3,200 square feet of turf.
Okay. Thank you again, Jeff. Appreciate it. So just 2 very quick points before we go. I know we're running a little bit over 8 o'clock, and I like to usually get things done at 8. Just on administrative matters, our admin assistant resigned. I think I mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting. So we no longer have an administrative assistant.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
would there be, thank you, Jeff. Have a great evening. Would there be somebody who would be perhaps willing to do the meeting minutes for this meeting? I'm hoping to have an administrative assistant in place by the November meeting, but I know some other committees in town kind of take turns. I don't know if that would be something we'd be interested in this committee. I mean, I could do it, but I'm in the process of starting a new job next week, and I definitely have I continue the time and service to this committee, but if somebody would be able to perhaps shoulder that responsibility just for this one meeting. This would not be a recurring, hopefully, issue once we have a new administrative assistant. Don't all jump at once. Well, if you have
Elizabeth.
What? Don't you be volunteering me.
No, I just said, oh, hi, Elizabeth.
Tony, sure.
All right, well, with that, if somebody does want to bring their name forward, please don't hesitate to call me, text me, email me, and we will happily put you in place. It'd be great. You will have a great and appreciative chairman. One other matter, the final matter, committee reorganization. We haven't done this since I started as chair way back in literally 2 years ago, right around this time. So there's 3 positions: chair, vice chair, treasurer. We don't have a treasurer. Tom King was the treasurer. He has been placed as a rec committee representative. So that new representative will hopefully be with us at the next meeting. He was unable to attend this evening. And Tony has been, I've been the chair, Tony's been the vice chair.
Aren't you guys co-chairs?
We were co-chairs and then we split the
I
title.
gave it all.
I've been very appreciative serving. This has been definitely an interesting experience. And I am comfortable shouldering that on further. I don't know, but does anybody have any?
I was gonna say you did a great job,
Jack.
and
Great job.
I nominate you to be the chair again.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion and second.
Is it-
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right, now
You
we
did
have.
that quick.
Now we have
Co-chair.
the case of the vice chair. So are there any nominations or
Anyone want to do
vice chair?
Oh, Tony, you've been doing a great job
Oh, really?
too.
I
I
forgot I
nominate
was.
you.
Nominate
it? I forgot that I was the vice chair.
Nomination, a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right, and now the role of treasurer. This would just be somebody who could help us get those balance sheets every couple of months as the numbers are changing to bring back to the committee. Just help me on certain matters. Kind of would just be a helper in that sense with a lot of the, because a lot of the things we're dealing with is with money. We have a very large, significant fund that this community currently has right now. So are there any nominations for treasurer?
I just got off being treasurer by association.
I
So
nominate Phil. He's good with numbers.
Yeah,
Bill?
he's the one that was asking about the numbers, so I think that'd be good.
Nomination, do I hear a second?
Second.
Tony seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Still
Aye.
do it now?
Oh, I'll accept.
Oh, we didn't ask him.
I should have probably added.
I figured the pharmacist. Pretty good at that.
I just.
We gotta do it, we gotta do it quick.
Bill
before you
counts.
say-
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You're into my book.
All right, well,
He's still thinking about it.
thank you, everyone. Does anybody have any other quick comments or things that they want to add?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, do I hear a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.